Learn and never stop learning. I think this is actually great life advice and great writing advice as well. Welcome to How to Write Good. I am your host, Daniel Poppie. You can find out more about me at danielpoppie.com. If it is your first time here, How to Write Good is a writing podcast that seeks to find principles and advice that can be applied across a broad range of writing situations. If you've been here before, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button below, and share. There's a quote, and I believe it's by Benjerman Frankerlman. And the quote goes, "Do things worth writing about or write something worth reading." Since we are all writers or creators here in some sense, we don't want to do something worth writing about because that actually might take us out of our comfort zone. So we need to find a way to write about what people want to read. I'm in that category as well, realize. That is our goal. We want to find something that other people want to read. In some cases, we are writing about fantasy worlds. In some cases, we're writing mysteries. Some people like to write love stories. There's thousands of different things to write about, maybe even millions. I'm not sure. There's probably billions of things to write about. But we're trying to find something that connects to people in some way, whether it's entertainment, whether it's escapism, whether it's the craft of the writing itself, or whether it's putting them on a grand adventure, or whether it's just to learn something new. We are trying to write about something people want to read. That is our end goal. And how are we going to achieve that end goal? Or what can lead us to that end result? Well, I think the answer is pretty simple. Having good ideas. Now, some of you may be thinking, yeah, I've got a lot of good ideas, and I'm just itching. I'm chomping at the bit to get those out on paper, or if you're a painter, get those on a canvas or whatever, write them into music. I don't know what you do. But you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, I have tons of different ideas and I'm just overflowing with ideas. But others of you might be thinking, yeah, I've got some ideas, but I'm writing stuff, but I'm running out of things I want to write about. And it might be the case for some of you that you're writing and you read over what you've written and you think to yourself, this is the most boring thing I've read in my entire life. And that's happened to me too. And that's happened to me recently as well, where I read a book that I've written, or I read a chapter or just a small paragraph, and I think to myself, that was terrible. And I don't want to read that. And I'm sure other people don't want to read it either. Now, one way we can mitigate against writing terribly is having a lot of different ideas to write about, because then all we need to do to write about those things is find the words that we can convey those ideas with. And I'm going to tell you that if you do not have ideas, the question of where those ideas come from is actually answered very simply. Learn constantly. I seriously think this is the case. Because if you are learning constantly, you're constantly constructing different ideas in your head. You're constantly coming up with different ideas in relation to those things. I think what I would add along with this is learn constantly, fall in love with learning, and be a curious person. I've heard the creative person's mind described as a mulch pile, okay, or a fertilizer pile. For those of you who don't know what mulch is, you take all your food scraps and you toss it into a pile or a pot or something like that, and it decomposes. And that is very fertile. It helps your plants grow. And what this person described the creative person's mind as something where all these things come together, and the creative person forgets about all these things. And what happens when the creative person sits down to write or to paint or to make music is that they pull from this mulch pile, this fertile pile of information, and they can pull all these little details together to put it into a final piece of art. And I think that has some truth to it. But I think it's applicable not just to creative people, because everybody has a certain amount of creativity within them. If people did not have any creativity within them, they would take information and they would spit it back out to everybody else without any variation on that information. The very fact that people can take in information, they can process that information, and they can integrate that information into how they think, and then they can talk about that, even if they are only adding little bits and pieces to it, or they're only replacing a word here and there, means that the person is changing something into something else. And oftentimes, even if a person isn't very intelligent, they're going to bring other ideas into what they're talking about, and they're going to try to defend their point in some way, unless they're ridiculously intellectually lazy. And what is happening in the creative process is that the person is taking all the pieces of their experiences and they're bringing all the pieces they need into a single piece of art. And at the end of that process, they have that single piece of art, and it's greater, it's better than the sum of its parts. It's something more, and that's what they're trying to achieve. I say that you should be constantly learning, that you should fall in love with learning, that you should constantly be curious, because if you aren't, you're not learning anything else. Your art is going to remain the same as it was before. What you've written is going to repeat itself again and again and again. But if you're constantly bringing new experiences into your life, or you're constantly trying to experience new things, but not just experience new things, but learn about different people and learn about different things in life, whether that's the sciences, whether that's the arts, whether that's how people work, whether that's how specific animals work, or history or mythology, etc., why people think the way they do, the more you explore those things, and you're not necessarily believing everything you hear, but the more you explore those things, the more you're understanding them, and the more things you can draw from. You're essentially taking more and more food waste and tossing it into your mulch pile, if that makes sense. You're growing your mulch pile bigger and bigger and bigger. It's decomposing. It's getting really, really fertile. You have tons of stuff you can draw from. And the more you're learning, the bigger that's going to be, and it's going to be harder to run out of ideas. And the whole point of this is so that you don't run out of ideas, and you do have those ideas that matter. And then you can write about things people want to read. So what do you think? Do you think this has some ring of truth to it? Do you have any other comments about it, or how people approach creativity? Or do you think that people shouldn't learn about different things? Which I don't know why you take that perspective, but if you do take that perspective, I'd be curious to know why. So you should definitely reach out and tell me. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support me, there's really one simple thing you can do. You can go to danielpoppie.com/newsletter and sign up for my newsletter. And when you sign up, you'll actually be able to get access to my publication roadmap. So that's everything I have planned for pretty much every project I have into the next decade. Again, that is danielpoppie.com/newsletter. You can also find the link below.